Good day, Chaos Army. It's Primal Chaos here. I'm going to call you guys an army from now on because there's 4,000 of you. 4,000 strong. So, yeah, look, when I started this journey into extreme vocals or analyzing bands with extreme vocals, never did I realize that I would one day end up on instrumental guitar virtuoso YouTube. But yet here we are. You know, ever since I did Polyphia, everyone's corrected me on how to pronounce it, and so many of you have said different ways. So I'm just going to say Polyphia from now on. That's just how it is. Yeah, look, you know, so many of you were throwing out other suggestions in the same vein of sort of, you know, interesting takes on guitar playing. And so that leads us to Ichika Nito Awakening. I don't know much about it, but like, I mean, the still frame looks pretty cool. So I'm guessing this guy probably has a lot in common with Tim Henson as far as like viewing the guitar differently. Maybe, possibly, who knows? So let's check it out. I'm really interested. This whole new school of guitar, you know, a lot of old school sort of guitar players like myself who are, you know, grew up on the boomer bends. If any of you have been following boomer bend gate, you know, sometimes people can be threatened by a new wave of talent coming through and changing the game, because you tend to have this rock steady belief that everything that can get done with the guitar has been done. Otherwise, you would have figured it out. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to be the guy who innovates and makes up something new. And so it can be a little threatening. But for me personally, my attitude, and as much as I know the title of my Polyphia video was The Day I Quit Guitar. That was obviously a tongue-in-cheek joke, right? But, you know, I embrace sort of people who innovate and come up with new things. So that's just who I am as a person. So in this case, this is a lane that I'm really interested in because I'm at a stage where I want to start to get back into practicing guitar a lot more, and getting my chops back and getting my technique up and stuff like that. And what better way to find inspiration than to look to the best in the world. So I'm going to jump right in. Ichika Nito Awakening. Oh. What I just said before about joking about quitting guitar, I lied. Oh my God, did you see that? I don't know if I'm just being bamboozled by the fact that it's clean sound and you don't often see arpeggiated tapping and stuff like that with bell-like clean tones. I mean, this sounds like a mix between possibly piezo pickup in the bridge and like a clean, like a single coil. I'm not sure. It sounds like there's more than one voicing going on somehow. But anyway, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to go back to the start, and I'm going to try not to get overwhelmed by how freaking amazing that little run was. So actually, before we start again, one thing that's abundantly clear already is that there's a lot of notes going on, but there's this element of weaving a melody throughout, which is really strong, right? Not only that, it's an interesting melody rhythmically as well. Like he's sort of shifting beats around to sort of make it like you could easily play to a tempo and sort of, you know, arpeggiate and accent certain notes in such a way to play rhythm and melody at the same time. But the options he's choosing melodically and the phrasing is super interesting. So, wow. Well, I mean, look, there's a lot of things to say. One thing I'm noticing that's if you're trying to learn how to play this, and I'm not even going to try. I've seen some people going, I've been learning it, and I know the notes and everything, but just getting it tidied up is the challenge. You're not going to be able to do it unless your right hand is as loose and as comfortable as he is, right? Anybody, the PMIA, anyone who's ever learned classical fingerstyle technique guitar will know what I'm talking about. You can just see the way that his right hand just floats across the strings. There's no tension, there's no clawing. His thumb is resting super comfortably above the E string, ready to provide the bass notes and stuff like that. But you know what? As far as compositionally, it feels like what he's done is he's come up with some really nice chord voicings, and learned how to sort of lyrically arpeggiate that stuff. Arpeggiate means to play the chord but broken up into individual notes, right? So instead of playing like a C chord, like brang, you'll play like do 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 do. That's an arpeggio, right? So he's like, he's arpeggiating the chords or the voicings of whatever chords he's playing. And then it seems like he's overplaying it and playing it. He's sort of thought it through and gone, okay, there's nothing interesting happening here. What can I put in there? What can I reach that's dramatic sounding, and also kind of interesting to the ear? So there's no dead air. It's always like he's always going from one interesting little articulation to another by way of a really beautiful and relatively complex arpeggiated pattern as well. So, man, it's real easy to say all of that. What's not easy is to be the guy who came up with that, what he's doing, you know, man, that's, whew. Let's go back. I don't want to miss any sort of ramping up. There's some funkiness going on there with his intonation. Let me hear that bit again. First of all, let's just take the world's most complicated articulated patterns and just do double time. We'll just crank up the tempo. Then there's some parts there where he's letting those chords hang that there's sort of like an interesting, not even to the point where it's chorusing, but there's like a slight shift in the intonation so that it sounds like it's not out of key, or it's not out of pitch, or out of tune. But it is like the chords, the two notes against each other are slightly out. So I'm thinking what he might be doing is, if there's an open note there, he's bending the non-open note sharp just fractionally to give this weird. It sort of evokes like a music box, because music boxes are always, you know, they're close enough. They're never quite in tune, because, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into making a device that basically flicks around a drum and makes melodies, right? But it just sort of sounds a little bit sort of wavery, like a little bit chorusy, you know, because of the frequencies sort of not quite meshing. I mean, one thing you need to understand about guitars, if you don't already know, guitars are never actually in tune, right? It's part of their charm. It's part of the reason why they sound so great producing rock music and stuff like that. But the reason for it is the frets that run up the fingerboard here. They are essentially the point in the string's length where this note sort of ends and this one begins, right? The problem is, mathematically they work it out to be a best fit, but there's not really any way to draw a straight line across here and hit all of that intonation. Sorry, there's a fly in here. It's killing me. So this line here is like the best average for all 6 strings, right? And so that happens all the way up the neck. And so you end up with points where, you know, you might fret, say for example, this note, and it's going to be slightly flat, but out of the average of the entire string, that's kind of the best place it could be based on these other strings, right? So you can get true temperament guitars where these lines, instead of being straight, they're squiggly lines, because they mathematically worked out exactly harmonically where the pitch ends on each particular length of the string, and they mark it, and then they make a wriggly fret line across the neck. The problem with them is when you start to play them, the first thing that becomes abundantly clear is that a guitar that's perfectly intonated or perfectly in tune on every note doesn't sound like a guitar anymore. It sounds like a synthesizer pretending to try and sound like a guitar, but it sounds too perfect. Part of the character of that tone is the pitchiness, also the harmonics of the guitar and how it works, like fundamentally across the spectrum of frequencies and things like that. But it sounds artificial and synthesized, right? And so anytime you play something this clean on a beautifully intonated guitar, I'm sure it would be set up by the masters at Ibanez. You know, it's going to be as close as possible, but never perfect. And I don't know if that's what I'm hearing because it's such a beautiful bell-like tone and these notes are going together, but it seems deliberate because it obviously is designed to sound like a music box, and the chorusing makes it more so. So let's see if you guys can pick up on it. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, we'll be right back after this with a summary. All right, a lot of you guys all already know this. I've been over it a bunch of times, but 1 in 6 of you guys and 1 in 200 of you women are actually colorblind. And if you are, there's something you can do about it. Click the link in my description. It'll take you to Enchroma, where you can do an eye test and find out what kind of deficiency you have. And while you're there, you can pick up some corrective lenses. They've got styles to suit everybody. And while you're there in the checkout, use Chaos as your code and you'll get 10% off. Tell them Primal Chaos sent you. I mean, the audacity of this guy. Look, it's a thing of beauty. This is one of the great guitar compositions. It's funny, you know, like when you think about learning classical style guitar, like whether it's flamenco or classical Renaissance style guitar or whatever you're doing, you get handed a whole bunch of pieces that are just classics, right? And they vary in degree of complexity from beginner through to, you know, the kind of thing that you would play at like a recital, an advanced recital piece or something like that. And these things didn't just miraculously come out of nowhere. And so it's easy to think of them as songs that have always existed, and they came from a time when this was just the quality of musicianship, right? But you also have to remember that the songs that stand the test of time, or the pieces that stand the test of time, are the greatest pieces, right? By the greatest artists, the greatest composers, greatest players, things like that. And it's real easy to think of that as two different realities. You've got this old-timey reality where people could create these insane masterpieces of guitar virtuosity, and you know, skip forward to modern day in our lifetimes, and it seems like those pieces belong in the hands of recital musicians who are there purely to demonstrate their ability to play an amazing piece from back in the day, right? And so, you know, you get a lot of these virtuoso performers who will do these classic pieces mostly just to flex and to demonstrate their ability to do it, right? But you kind of tend to forget, unless you're exposed to artists like this all the time, you forget that they were just songs at some point that were written by someone, who was probably at the top of their game or whatever, but they were definitely just a person who wrote the song and performed it. And it's moments like this where I'm reminded that geniuses like that still exist today. You know, this is just a stunning composition. Does it have some flex moments in it? Absolutely. You know, like you don't need to go into that double time, and you don't need to do that crazy little run at the end to sort of take it to a finishing note, you know, like, but, or do you, you know, like, is it, at what point, look, the one thing that was great about this piece was it was pure technician, right? It was technical as hell. It was played beautifully clean. It was played to a level that I think is so fine that the fine level of detail of the playing is probably lost on a big portion of the audience. They don't even notice what's going on. Sure, they can see a guy and they understand that he's playing at a level that very few people in the world could match. But there's also parts of it, technique-wise and sonically and things like that, that are just above the pay grade of most people, right? And that's the nuance that comes from truly understanding what you're doing. And the way that you truly understand what you're doing is you write the piece, right? So you can, I mean, the same thing could be said for taking a classic piece and interpreting it and figuring out the way it exists through you as the prism. And so you can add a lot of your own personal nuance to it. But if you're just reciting it based on the notes on the page, sure, you can play the song and it might sound amazing and you'll fool 99% of the population. But there's a certain point where that extra 1% is all the difference between what is a masterpiece of performance and what is, you know, a really good quality version of this fly, man. I swear to God. Look at that. Oh my God. I'm not going to credit you in the episode. All right. Yeah, there's, you know, and I mean, this dude seems pretty young as well. I'm not sure. I mean, he could be 45 for all I know. I don't know, but figuring out where this guy gets to in his journey or like learning where he gets, like what his end, like what his final boss is going to be a real interesting journey, you know. Man, look, that was, there's so much to unpack with that one, and I feel like I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of getting involved in what I just saw. It's not a song for a reaction other than that was breathtaking. The oohs and the ahs, the pulling faces at the camera. That's what a lot of you guys come here for, right? Right. And to be fair, like what you saw was genuine. But this isn't for me, this isn't a reaction song. This is a song that requires countless listens to get to the bottom of every harmonic moment and figure out exactly what the design of that was, you know. With as far as the intonation thing I heard earlier, when I went back through and listened to it again, I think it's just more that he was just choosing really cleverly a few dissonant notes in there that sort of give the overall impression of things being a little bit off kilter. Or maybe not. Maybe he's just playing around with, like, you know, 10 cents or 5 cents in the pitch of some of the notes that he's fretting and stuff to sort of shift you a little bit off the comfort level, you know. It was definitely deliberate. It wasn't like, oh, I just kind of missed that a little bit and it sort of sounded kind of hinky. It was beautifully articulated to impose that sense of that sensation, you know. Man, I can't thank you guys enough for recommending this one. This was a treat. This was like, man, anything else by him, let me know. I'll take a look at it. I'm still going to get back to Polyphia. I still want to get back to, I mean, I've got some more Ginger songs to do. There's a ton. Every time I've said I'm going to fall down a rabbit hole and I get distracted and I move on, there's so much I got to backtrack, but I like that. I like the fact that it's going to be spread out a little bit, you know, rather than just having like, oh, for the last 4 weeks, all this guy's done is Ginger. So yeah. Cool. If you feel like I've brightened your day at all, feel free to buy me a coffee. I'll put a link in the description. Or, you know, like, share, subscribe, follow, all that sort of stuff. I'll keep you posted on some ideas I've got coming up and all that in the near future. And you know what? Thanks guys for sticking around. Thanks for the 4,000 subs. I can't even believe it at this point. yeah, but it's fantastic, and you guys have been great comment wise. It's always stunning. I think I've responded to, or at least interacted with every comment so far. It's killing me, but I'm taking the time because that's how much I appreciate all you guys. So thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.